This is the second part of Resilient Poland. Here we cover the German Nazi occupation, 1939 to 1945. The war was started by the Nazis in northern Poland, in Gdansk. This shows you where the war started. The Germans shelled and destroyed one of the Polish outposts, marked here by various bricks showing the outline. And in the background is a monument to those Polish soldiers who were killed at that time. The Poles held out against Nazi attack for 7 days. The Polish High Command had asked for them to survive and hold out for a day, but they extended that for 7 days. So many years later, the Polish Pope, John Paul II, gave a talk at this site, and his key words about having to face difficulty are written, of course, in Polish. Lisa Demers, one of our travel mates, used Google Lens to translate what's written on the stone. As you travel to non-English speaking countries, I recommend Google Lens. Anyway, what the Pope said was, each of you young friends, also find some of your own Westerplatte, that's the name of the area, in life. Some dimension of task that must be undertaken and fulfilled, some order of laws and values that need to be maintained and defended for ourselves and for others. Two weeks after the Poles were attacked by the Nazis, they were attacked in the other direction by the Soviets. Eventually, the Nazis attacked the Soviets, swept all the way deep into the Soviet Union, and then the counterattack occurred. 1943, meanwhile in Warsaw, the Jewish ghetto uprising occurred. The U.S. Holocaust Museum describes this as one of the most significant occurrences in the history of the Jewish people. The last surviving rebellion commander said that their inspiration to fight was not to allow the Germans alone to pick the time and place of our deaths. They knew they would die, but they had to fight the Germans anyway. Here's Mick, my wife Kathy, and Lisa. We're in the Jewish ghetto memorial. There's mass graves there, and you see them underneath the stones. Stones are rubble of what was the Jewish ghetto. Around 10,000 are buried in mass graves. Roughly a year later, as the Soviets were approaching Warsaw, the city itself rose up against the Nazis. The Nazis brutally put down the uprising, while the Soviet army watched across the river. 85% of the city were destroyed by the Nazis. Children were part of the effort. They helped take ammunition to soldiers fighting the Nazis. This is the wall of Old Town, and one of the soldiers is commemorated here. One of the small children commemorated here. This is the Old Town Square in Warsaw. And if you turn 90 degrees from this spot, you see modern stadium across the river. It's less than a mile away. That's where the Soviet army sat and watched as the Nazis destroyed Warsaw, as the Nazis killed the population of Warsaw. Soviets just sat and waited. They didn't want Poles to survive. They didn't want independent-minded Poles to survive. Once the Germans had done their killing for them, then the Soviets came and marched through on their way into Germany. One of the museums, or monuments rather, in Poland today is the empty chairs in Ghetto's Heroes Square in Krakow. There are 81 chairs, metal chairs, in this empty square. Now, each one of these chairs has a picture. The chairs face in different directions, commemorating the fact that some of the Jews of the Polish Krakow ghetto, over 300,000, were taken to a concentration camp in one direction versus another direction versus another direction. Most face toward Auschwitz. One particular chair with one particular photograph. I sort of lost it. Vasilia Israel. She was about the age of the daughter I lost, Monica, at the age of 2 years, 8 months. The Nazis killed and killed. And they did a lot of their killing at Auschwitz. Auschwitz is still standing. It has been preserved. Instead of destroying history, the Poles rebuild, persevere, preserve. This is our group as we're entering Auschwitz. One particular photograph grabbed me. On the left, you see Jews coming in from a train. In fact, you can see the train tracks there. And as they're brought into the camp, the man in the middle has his hand out with his thumb, in this case, pointing right into the camp in one direction. He would go left and right. If you went one direction, you went immediately to the gas chambers. If you pointed in the other direction, you went in to work in the camp. Those of us from the United States, Lisa, Kathy, Mick, and I, we realized at our age, we'd have gone straight to the gas chambers. Nazis took anything they thought was useful. This is an exhibit of the shoes that were still there that had not been repurposed. Briefcases. All those brought to the camp, they brought valuables. They brought mementos. And the Nazis took all of them, repurposed what they could. And this is what was there when the camp was liberated in 1944. The end of the tour, we go through the gas chamber house building, and this is the tour group coming out. Have you read about Oskar Schindler or seen the movie Schindler's List? His factory in Krakow still stands. It's there in this picture. I took the picture, by the way, walking out of the hotel in Krakow one evening on the way to get snacks. And I realized and saw the signs for what this was. The glass and metal building above and around it is now the museum. See, the Poles don't destroy things. They preserve, they keep. In this case, incorporate into a larger museum. The Nazi occupation, the Nazi Holocaust. What you see when you visit another German concentration camp, Dachau in Germany, you see the slogan, or the words rather, never again. And it's not just a slogan, it's a commitment. I demand, I encourage each one of you to adopt that commitment. Never again will we allow genocide of the Jewish people as the Germans inflicted 1939 to 1945.